Welcome, one and all, to the People's Pitch, the official podcast of your Minneapolis City Soccer Club. I'm your host, John, and alongside me, as always, is Mr. Nate Morales. Nate, it feels kind of weird that we didn't have like 5 games this week. Did you have a nice little break and a good Father's Day?
I did, man. I did. I had a good break. Real nice, relaxing weekend. We got to draw out the Father's Day celebrations a little bit, so it wasn't all crammed into one day, which is always a tough thing for a mixed family like mine. But yeah, man.
Yeah.
You were sick, so that's too bad.
Yeah, like on the one day on the planet outside my birthday where I'm allowed to do whatever I want, I happened to get sick, and I had massive plans. My parents are in town. It's the boys' birthday today, so they were in town, and I was like, "We're playing golf, Dad. I don't care if I'm leaking out of every orifice in my head. We're playing golf." So
I'm glad you said your head.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. So we played some golf and watched the women's team and got to do some normal stuff. But the majority of the day, I was on the golf course. I was in sweatpants under a blanket.
Yeah. Well,
so, but anyways, let's get after
better,
it,
man.
Yeah.
This week we have a packed show. The U23s had a few games lately that we want to cover. We want to give them their just desserts, if you will. We traveled to Wisconsin. We got a much-needed revenge victory. We'll talk about how that shaped up. And we will preview the midweek match in North Dakota and everyone's favorite local derby versus the TwinStars coming up this weekend. Let's make things happen, John.
Yes, so it was a busy run for the Baby Crows over the past 2 weeks as they traveled far and wide to take on some real quality sides. So why don't you just take it away, Nate?
Yeah, so the first match they played saw them travel all the way to Nebraska last weekend to take on the Bug Eaters, and we faced them last year away on that trip. Remember they were supposed to come here, but it got snowed out, right?
Yeah.
So we ended up just going to the return leg and calling it the end of it. And that was an interesting trip, if I remember right. Let's just say is this year a little bit more of the same. It's difficult, man, to make that 8-hour trip to gather up guys that are on that U23 squad that might not have as much skin in the game as the NPSL dudes. And usually that coupled with the long drive bites the Crows, and we hope eventually that we can turn that around. The full side can't really make that van ride usually. So this year, like we said, we saw 15 players go, and it ended up with a 3-0 loss to the Bug Eaters. It was very much a tale of two halves. It was a 0-0 halftime scoreline with the Crows playing some really good soccer. But then those Bug Eaters started to turn the screws. They scored all their goals versus a tired City side, and that sent us, the visitors, back to our hotel after taking one on the chin. But they're going to get a chance to swing back at the Bug Eaters later this summer when they are in town, and we hope the scales will tip in our favor that time around when it's their 8-hour drive to make.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next match for the U23 saw them turn around on 3 days rest from the Nebraska trip to head to play UPSL 2 side, the Green Bay Voyagers, who we saw take 3 points off the Crows at home in a 2-1 earlier this summer match, with seeing everyone's favorite Steve Ian Smith make the roster for that game, make the trip down, play against his old squad, which is great.
Awesome.
But this game again, Nate, a common theme. Tale of two wildly different halves. The home side Voyagers got off to a really hot start, playing mostly in the city half for the first 45, tallying 3 goals in that first 45 minutes. So not the start you want, specifically coming off of a 3-0 loss to give up another 3 goals. So, in the tale of, basically 90 minutes of gameplay over 2 games, the second half of the Nebraska game and then the first half of the Green Bay game, right. giving up 6 goals and scoring none kind of hurts. But with some changes made by Coach Handler at the half, the Crows came out firing in the second, and then the rain came and it was real shitty out. A lot of weird passes, a lot of heavy, wet touches, but the Crows grabbed 2 goals back before seeing one of the goal scorers, Rory O'Driscoll, pick up his second yellow card, and then the shorthanded Crows really couldn't find the equalizing goal after that, and then just kind of slogged out the last 15 minutes in the rain. The Voyagers play on a baseball field, so it was kind of weird.
What?
Yeah, they play on like I don't know. It's like a brand new turf baseball field, and it's nice, but it's just one of those weird dimensions, So it's kind of difficult to play when your bench is on the wall, the outfield wall, and the seats aren't close to to the field. So, but anyways, they that puts them up against a USL2 side, which essentially is supposed to be kind of at our level that, with the MPSL. So we saw essentially our reserve team take on what in most parts was their reserve side. They did play the lion's share of their starters in the first half, where they got those 3 goals, in that first half. But, you look at it, and that's 5 goals against and 3 goals for this team against the USL2 side. So I think that's a win for those guys. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, it feels pretty good. I think, especially considering they turned around 3 days rest. They'd just driven, some of those guys had just driven to Omaha, during the week, and then they have to drive to Green Bay right afterwards. I think it's just a busy week, and you're going to get guys that are fatigued, and I think it's the best you could ask for, right? Against some of these guys,
Yeah, absolutely. I think so.
The whole, and the whole U23, the point of this is development and that sort of thing. So results aren't really what we need to be looking at. But I think, to your point, 6 goals over 90 minutes is not great. But when you analyze how they lined up against Green Bay specifically, I think 5 goals to 3, especially considering the situation, is good.
Yep, absolutely.
So the last match that this busy week and a half, 2 weeks of U23 play saw was on Saturday, and it seems like they were ripe to bounce back. They picked up their first win of the year. They beat the parent club. They beat the Stegmans by a score of 6-0. John, what all we can really say about this one is that it was finally a chance to see those U23 guys click together and find the back of that net. They scored 2 goals in the first half. They kept the gas pedal down. They finished the second with another 4. Not the kind of result that Stegmans is used to seeing either, is it?
No, not really. But again, we have so many players, but you get stretched thin, right? Where how many guys on the MPSL team and the U23 team play on that Stegmans roster. So the remainder of the Stegmans players are quality soccer players, but you'd have to think that the majority of the guys that are kind of being borrowed across all 3 teams are the better talent was on the city end than on the Stegmans end. So, but it's a good side. And after kind of going winless in their first few games, that's just one that they kind of needed.
Yeah, I hear you.
So next up for the Crows will be some off time, some well-needed rest for a bit before they travel on June 26th down to Rochester to take on the new UPSL Midwest side, Rochester FC. So we'll give a full recap of that, but they get some time off to rest those travel legs a bit, I guess.
Yeah, I think if you're really interested in seeing a little bit more what the Rookery has to offer, start looking at what's going on the schedule the second half of July, because once this NPSL season is over, that's really when the U23s are going to start to shine. We're going to have a couple dates at Edor Nelson. Like I said, Bug Eaters come to town. It's at Rochester return leg. So that'll be some good opportunities to see these guys in action.
Yeah, absolutely.
A year ago, John, we went to Wisconsin with an eye on clinching that North Conference or North Division title early. Versus a side in LaCrosse Eris who typically we have an easy time with, right? Well, that didn't happen, if we remember. We've noted it a few times in the show lately that Eris really did everything they could to make sure that we didn't hoist the trophy on that day. They did everything they could outside of maybe playing soccer. So this year though, looks like quite a bit different for the Crows versus Eris matchup in LaCrosse, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, let's talk about who made the trip for the Crows, because it was, like we mentioned, Eris is the last team in the league they're the only team in the league left, or in our division left, to have no streaming, and our game day Twitter was funny but of questionable accuracy. So I want to hear it from you, John. Who was down there?
So because of injury, that kind of the bug that bit the Crows, we were unable to send a full strength side to Eris, meaning like a full 18, not like we sent a bunch of people who couldn't play soccer. So, while a few U23 call-ups were quite not registered yet to play, that were being brought in, and we'll talk about those guys next week. Those guys weren't ready from a league perspective to be registered, but the side that did go was one that I watched in training last week, and they were primed and ready to go with 3 points on their mind, which is great to see. So even though a full 18 didn't go, this was I think a good group to go. So basically from a starter's perspective, you saw Troy in net. You saw Mark Haight on the left side in the back. Jonah partnered with AO in the middle, a little bit of a different look there, moving AO from the right back into center back, where I think he's also comfortable. And what you get there is speed at the center back. And I know last year versus Rochester, when they had Claudio Repetto, who was a very fast, big striker, we deployed AO in the middle and the back, and it worked out well. So he has played back there before. Yeah. And then rounding out the right back, replacing him was Zuhair Al-Abbasi. And then your midfield three was Hoof, Stigward, and then Aiden O'Driscoll playing the 10. Making his first start of the year. And then your three up top was Will Kidd, Timmy, and Justin Oliver. So again, like a quality side, right? But one that's a little bit different than what we're seeing. But they had quite a few training opportunities to play together. There was I went to one of the sessions where they played a full 90 against the U23s and some of the other guys that weren't making the trip, and they were ready to go, man. We did some scenario play. You're down by 1, you need to chase a game. You're up by 2. How do you kill it out? And then also a sequence of about 30 minutes of play where it was packed in, and we had to try to break down a fully bunkered defense like we saw last year from LaCrosse. So on the subs bench was Ben Wexler, Kevin Andrews, Charlie Adams, and then U23 call-up who could make it, Mike Riley.
Nice. Yeah, John, we talked a little bit about the depth. We talk often about the depth on this team. And this is one of those trips, like you said, that's always kind of been one that's bitten the Crows for one reason or another. Even though you guys didn't send the full 18, it sounds like from what you're saying that this is the group that, like, there are guys that are ready, like Wexler, right? He'd been missed a couple of games from injury. He was slotted into play to start and a captain against Des Moines, and he couldn't do it. And you know he was super bummed about that. You know he was pissed off, and so getting the opportunity to get those minutes, it's got to be exciting for him. Kevin Andrews gets to go down and show what he can do again. Mike Riley gets to show up. Aiden O'Driscoll with his first start. So these guys, like you said, they should have been amped up and ready to play, even if it was against Eris.
Right, exactly.
What were your first half thoughts, John?
Well, I'm going to be real quick with this one, Nate. We came with a chip on our shoulder, and we put on the press right away, and it paid off. I think the Crows created a ton of chances, which is the common theme against LaCrosse, where we create chance after chance. We pinned Eris back in their own half early and really only allowed them to play the long ball out of despair to get any resemblance of chances. Yeah. They did get a few half chances that were a little bit sketchy for the Crows, but in the end, at the half, it was 2-0 to the good guys on the back of a brace by Mark Haight out of the back. So again, another one was a penalty kick, but still, you see us gather 2 goals from a position on the field where you don't necessarily see a lot of scoring coming from. So that was good. At this point, though, Nate, we're well on our way to 3 points going into the half.
Yeah, another instance of goals coming from everywhere on the team. Funny that's Mark Haight. He's really been relied on in other matchups for his defensive skills, but in this one we get to see his shooting boots. One of those goals coming, like you said, off that penalty, which is interesting for him to be the guy that steps up to take it. But whatever. What did these? Go ahead.
I was saying, like, he's a really good penalty kick taker. Oh. Like he's one of those guys that is in your first 5, no matter what the scenario is, whether it's a pressure cooker game that ends with in penalties in like a cup game, he'd be a guy that you definitely slot in there. So
interesting.
Not weird for me to see that. Well, I mean, plus he's left-footed, so you kind of want to have at least one left footer in there,
right?
If not a couple, to kind of throw the goalkeeper off a little bit. So stepped up, slotted home a nice kick, and then got one through the run of play, which was pretty nice. But as far as what the second half brought, It was more the same, really, Nate. City was never, in anything but full control of this match, which is, awesome to hear. Seeing what happened last year up over there, it was really good, like bouts of what I like to say is more like patient, controlled possession, where they had timely attacks instead of panicking, and it was, a bunker down defense, not as bad as last year, but still kind of in the defensive third, really kind of trying to claw it up for us. So we didn't press things, and we were really trying to pick our spots. And I think the reason why you saw that in the game was because that's really what we worked on in training. So it was good to see that kind of, carried over. But like I said, there were some very timely attacks, and that saw Tim Wills and Will Kidd round out the scoring. And we got in the vans with 3 points and 8, got the hell out of Wisconsin. And I think we checked this win off of our list to stay relevant in the top half of the division with a game in hand.
Yeah, finally a game where everything works out as planned, right? Where we send a squad that kept scoring, they kept healthy, and they kept the pressure on the top of the table.
Mm-hmm.
It's great to see that Wex was healthy. Like we said, he's really bummed to have missed some of that time this season. He should be able to contribute moving forward, hopefully, if he can stay healthy now that Samo is out of the mix. I also want to point out that Jonah Garcia has quietly played every minute this season in the City backline, except for, I think, 6. He got subbed out down in Rochester in the 84th minute. Defensively, he is, in my mind, the story of the season so far, and we need to start giving him his due. And he even scored that differentiator in our opening night victory against Dakota. So I would say he's done everything possible to contribute to this team's success.
Yeah, I agree with you. And we talked about it before multiple times that he was a guy that came to us through our open tryout process. So
always good to have one of those stories every year.
Absolutely, and this one is paying off, and in all honesty, being in the position I sit in, the chair, the throne at which I sit upon, like I know the decision to bring Jonah in was a difficult one because we had another similar center back that had a couple different attributes that were different than Jonah. So it really kind of went down to a longer period of time between those two players coming in and training with the full team as they were coming back into camp before we made the full decision. And I'm really glad we made the decision that we did because we took our time on it, and it's really paying off for us, I think.
Yeah, for sure. John, let's check on the keys to the game. How did we do? First, you said punish them for last year's results in LaCrosse. Go out and hang 4 or 5 goals on a team that pulled out all the stops to tie us last year.
4-0, mission accomplished, Nate. Roll out the banner with George W., right?
Yep.
I would have liked to maybe see 3 or 4 more goals to make a true statement, but I'll take 4-0.
2, you said keep a clean sheet. If all goes well, 3 points will be riding home with us, but we need to get back on the right side from a goal differential standpoint, and that means not giving anything up.
Outside of one chance in the second half that called Troy into action, which was kind of like a, hey, Troy, wake up. The ball's in our half. I think that the clean sheet was taken out of the dryer and nicely folded up and ready to go. So, yeah, we definitely did that one.
Nice. And then third, stay healthy. We've got those key injuries right now. We want to make sure everyone is ready for the final push in the second half of the season.
Yes, there was. This was a very key one for City. Outside of a slight hamstring knock that Charlie Adams picked up in the second half when he was replaced by Wexler for precautionary reasons, everyone came back healthy that I've been told. So maybe a little bit tired from having to play a lot of minutes because we didn't have a full 18, but everyone came back healthy.
Nice.
So, ever since the first game of the year, Nate, versus the Crows, Dakota Fusion has been on a massive downward spiral after scoring kind of that late goal at Edor Nelson Field in our home opener. Yeah. Since then, after a brief spot where they had a 3-0 win versus the TwinStars on May 22nd, everything has gone wrong for this team. They had bright hopes, I thought, to start the season with getting a dangerous attacker like Isaac Cason back on the roster and a few other quality players that, when we saw them play, we talked about how they played some decent soccer. They leveled up this year. But news out of Fargo is that upwards of like 5 or 6 players have since left the squad in a similar issue that saw them fall completely apart last year at the end of the year, the exact same way.
Yeah.
This year it's happened earlier. So you hate to hear that. I don't know if it's 100% true, but it's kind of the rumor that's coming out of there. So, I mean, that just sucks overall. You don't like to hear that,
Right.
If it is true. But they got bit by the ultimate soccer bug, losing 5-2 to Eris, which is the NPSL's North version of a kick straight to the balls. And after that match, they have yet to score a goal over their last 2 games, being outscored 11-0 versus the TwinStars and on the road, and then at home versus Duluth. So to me, Nate, the season is over in North Dakota. Would you agree?
Yeah, the season is over. And if I were like the NPSL board, I would be worried about the viability of soccer in the Fargo-Moorhead area under this management. Because I think record aside, what are they? 2 wins, something. Anyway, record aside, if you look at the quality of their outings, the product on the field has really plummeted to the bottom of our conference, in my mind. I think their record is 2 wins, 6 losses, and no ties. Better technically than Sioux Falls Thunder, who've got 1 win, 6 losses, and a tie, and of course Eris, who has that 1 win.
But Sioux Falls has been unlucky. They played good soccer.
Yeah, I mean Sioux Falls, their goal differential is -8, right? So not ideal, but
what's
not a 1-loss or not a 1-win kind of team differential. Mm-hmm. Dakota Fusion is -15 on that goal differential.
And what's Eris?
-21. So they come on, this is not a. And if this is happening every year, right, then what does that say about how that team is being run, right? It's one thing to say, can you find the talent that'll stick around all year, and maybe they'll be on the level of like a Sioux Falls Thunder. At least they're playing. At least they're competitive. At least you're not starting the season and just like flaring out and losing 6 players by the end.
Yeah, and like look at how badly they've fallen from 2 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
Like 2 years ago, I still believe that we were a better team than they were, but they did their job and got the points that we didn't get. And then, went up and put a scare into Detroit City in the playoffs until Detroit City woke up and took the game back. But they scored, actually Zuhir scored the goal against Detroit City for Dakota Fusion in the playoffs that year.
Oh, for real?
Yeah. So, I mean, I agree with you. It's just I don't know what it is really about soccer in that area. But I mean, even if you look back 2 years ago at how strong they were really riding the back of Jay Johnson, who single-handedly was kind of keeping them in games and winning them games. And they had some good quality around him, but not the depth of quality that you kind of want to stick around. Then last year they tried to bring in a bunch of players from outside of the area. That didn't work, and now they're back using players that are majority of them are from the Fargo-Moorhead area, and it's just not working. So I think your take is something to think about, but it's just unfortunate.
It's not to say that we can take this trip off though. It's away in Fargo. And that midweek drive is not going to do a visiting team any favors.
Yeah, for me, Nate, I think things are over. To go back to the original question I asked, but there is always that thing in the back of my mind that tells me nothing is ever going to go our way in this division, and that they could somehow pull together the right mix of players to sneak one out on us during a hard midweek game, like you mentioned, traveling down there on a Wednesday. They could also sit back and pull like what an Eris did and could totally derail our chances of making the playoffs. Do I think it will happen? Probably not, but there's still going to be a need for us to go up there with a mission on our minds and really take care of business.
Yeah. What are your keys to this game then, John? You've probably touched on a couple of them already, but let's make it official.
Well, we have to make it official so I can continue my percentage of hit versus miss.
Exactly.
For these games. So number one is get on the front foot early. A lot of these keys of victory, I might add before I dive into that, are not they're not rocket science. There are a lot of the common themes here, but this one we've heard before, and it's get out early out of the gates. It's a hard trip to make. We've talked about it at length how difficult it is to win on the road in the North Conference, but if we can get an early goal and take the air out of the Fusion in the first half, it could really be a tipping point within the game that. It could be a way for us to roll out an easier 3 points on the road, setting us up for a chance, at that playoff bid or perhaps maybe a back-to-back title. If not, we have a lot of work to do. So I think we need to get out of the gates early. Number 2, keep a clean sheet. This is not different from last week. We needed to keep that run of goal differential last week, and I think we need to continue it into this week in our favor. And the best way to do that is to get to get your 3 points and not give up a goal. It really helps us in the table, but it also continues to put fear in the other title contenders that we are very much still serious about winning this division.
Yeah.
Where I think that because we lost to Duluth, the pressure of being undefeated has kind of been lifted off of us. And yeah, we had the opportunity to take points from that game, and we didn't, and we could still be undefeated and have this grandiose record that we're continuing to add on to. But I kind of think it was nice because everyone's been focusing on Duluth and Med City and kind of forgetting about us a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's nice. We've just gone out and we went out, played Med City. We owned the game for points of it. And then we gave up a penalty that was a little bit questionable, but we fought back and we got some well needed points on the road there. Then we go and take care of business in LaCrosse like we should. And no one's really, the chatter on social media isn't really about us. It's about how Duluth spanked Dakota Fusion and how Med City tied Sioux Falls. So it's kind of nice, I think. So we got to keep that clean sheet. And so we continue to, if people look over their shoulder, they see us, but they're not focusing on us.
Right.
And then lastly, stay healthy. Another theme from last week that carries over. We are going to need everyone for Saturday versus the TwinStars. So we're going to need to get out of this trip alive with all of our resources.
John, I think this week is going to prove if this team is all in on finishing strong, right? Mm-hmm. You mentioned it. Results this last week put us in prime position to lay claim to a playoff spot. Sioux Falls rolled into Rochester and got the result that we were hoping for. They played them to a 2-2 draw. Technically, we would like to win, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I think there was the result that we could have logically hoped for without without sounding ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I believe that we even kind of painted the picture of how it could happen. And lo and behold, we get goals from Bryce Holiday, their guy that I said I think was the guy that could produce for them. Both City and Duluth have a game in hand on Med City, and we are only 1 point behind Duluth right now, so technically we are in second place. Let me paint a picture for you here. While we're in Dakota on Wednesday, Duluth will be visiting the TwinStars, who drew in Duluth earlier this season. If results go our way, we win and there's a draw or a loss to TwinStars, we are at the top of the table. Then on Saturday, that gap could be opened wider because Duluth travels to Rochester. And Mid-City, they're suddenly in third place. They're going to be hungry for a victory. This is a very interesting week coming up for the NPSL North. And we need to keep our feet on the gas and really punish the mistakes of Med City and Duluth, the mistakes that they're going to be making over the last stretch, not be the ones making the mistakes. And that's why this Dakota game is the start of what we need to we need to really start taking care of business here this week.
I agree with you. I didn't even think about the other matches, and that probably is because I kind of in that don't care about other game mode at this point in the season.
You got to focus on the other stuff, right?
Right, but that's a very interesting thing that you mentioned is we could completely erase that Duluth loss with a win against a team we should beat and a team that we can beat in the TwinStars at home. So that's a very good astute take there, Nate.
Yeah, man, I got takes.
I like that.
I got analysis.
So speaking of analysis, why don't we dive into the TwinStars preview?
When you talk about a match in which mistakes could be made, that TwinStars trip down 94 into Minneapolis on Saturday is one of them. So while the away fixture worked out well for us in the end, it was not an open and shut case, man. It was not the easiest game to win. City/TwinStars is always a matchup that raises eyebrows and or shreds pubes.
I don't know how to follow that. The importance of this match for me is that we always have a TwinStars team that turns up to play us and pulls out all the stops to take us down. So you really never know what you're going to get from them outside of a hard fight. Unless there's a total fall down by any of the top three teams, this the TwinStars look to not be in a position to make the playoffs as of right now. But again, if they actually pull their shit together and play good soccer and let all that other crap aside, they could make a strong end of the year push and be in the conversation. They still have games yet to play versus all three of the top teams, starting with us, that are ahead of them, and could at least play spoiler if they don't get all the points they would need to make the playoffs, which is always what scares me about them. So are we going to be the team that they spoil, Nate, or how do you think this is going to work out?
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility. Like, we've seen their approach to playing us. We know they try to get in our heads and win the sympathy of the ref. But we also know that their keeper is subpar and that Abdallah Ba can shred their defenders. So, I'm going to say that if the team is as motivated, if they've been working as hard as you say, as if they're all in on a game like Eris, they're gonna definitely be worked up and ready for this game against TwinStars.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's now that with the loss of our friends in St. Paul, they are the team that everyone wants to watch us go out and play in this area.
Yep.
So, it'll be a good crowd that'll come out to this one.
Hopefully.
It'll be a home match, which we haven't had in a while. So, I just don't know about this one. But now, with your hot take from the end of your preview of Dakota, now it's got my wheels turning a little bit.
We got to do it, man.
We got to do it, and it could really be a nice slap back in the face of the competitors if we can do that quickly. And then we have Sioux Falls Thunder on the road, and then we finish up with Duluth on the road, and then Med City at home to end the season. So it would be great to go into those games with some points in hand versus having to get must-needed wins, because historically speaking, we haven't done really that well when we have to claw back up. And like we said, no one's going to give us any favors or do us any favors. So you're right. This is a big week for us.
Yeah. John, what are your keys to this game, knowing what you know?
I mean, I really realistically could just repeat the ones I did for the Dakota game. But first one is bring all the resources. This is the time of the year where we have to have everybody available and basically treat this as a win-or-go-home situation. We cannot do that if we don't have our best 18 possible, primed and ready to go. So training tonight and training tomorrow night are going to be big, and then how things shake out in Dakota are going to be big as well, because we got to bring the A game. We can't bring the B+ game because we've seen how that goes when we play against these guys.
Right.
But number 2 is just take points. We really need to come away from this game with at least 1 point. If we drop all 3 to TwinStars, it will not be it would not only be a big moral defeat, but it could be, as what we noted earlier, the dagger for the 2019 Crows. So leaving things not impossible if we lost to them, but very, very hard to overcome, and we do not want that.
Right.
Especially after your hot take. And then finally 3, get the offense going. We put up 6 goals over the past 2 games. So you'd say like, hey man, the offense is doing well. But we need to keep the trend going. Sorry, 5 goals.
Yep.
We need to keep the trend going, but there's a chance that we have yet to see the best of our front line players. And now more than ever will be the best time for us to just light that fire with some really hard games coming up after. So the game is this Saturday, June 22nd, 7 p.m. at Edor Nelson Field. As usual, tickets are available online at mplscitysc.com for $8 and will be available at $10 at the gate. So what are you waiting for, folks? Get on down there.
Let's do this.
Big game. Let's do this.
Yeah. That is all for tonight. Thanks, as always, to our sponsor, Summit Brewing. It is summertime, folks, and even though it's beautiful outside, I got my windows open, and I just did it. You heard it. Cracked myself a summer ale. It's by far the most delicious offering from Summit, and it is perfect for a warm night like tonight. Get to your local watering hole and get some on tap today, or get on down to your liquor store and pick up a 12-er. You will be a better person after you do that. Summit, a more meaningful brew since 1986. If giving back to the community means a lot to you, it is time to give to the club that gives back. Minneapolis City is a 501c3 that provides a safe, reliable, and fun environment for young people to play the beautiful game. We're in Curry Park doing free play Wednesdays all summer. Look for us in other parks and community centers around the city and consider a tax-deductible donation to a true city-focused organization. City games, they're a blast. It's plain and simple. And if you've been going and you like what you see and you're not a member, what's the problem? Memberships have been discounted, folks, so do it now. $40, half price for the rest of the season. You can support the club and get the cool stuff in return. The same cool stuff that some chump like me paid $80 for. You get a season pass to the rest of the city home games. You get an exclusive membership scarf. You get flex tickets to bring some friends, and a membership card that gets you 10% off at the club shop, and of course deals on Summit at our official game day bar, Palmer's. Plus, you get that vote on all those important club matters, including selecting membership board and choosing scarves and kit designs. Visit mplscitysc.com and make it happen for yourself today. Those stands have been packed. We've been selling out. So come on out and take advantage of this sweet deal. Send us mail. Get the mail in. It's easy. Hit us up on Twitter at The People's Pitch or through email at mcscpodcast@gmail.com. You can also somehow leave us a message on our podcast page. That's pretty cool. All questions, comments, and concerns are welcome. And as always, you can hit the club up to complain at mplscitysc. That is all for this week. That's it. I am Nate. That was John. Every game is a must-win from here on out. We control our own destiny. So everyone, please get excited with us and have some fun as the season is going to quickly come to an end. Before we even know it, it's gone.
And you got off.